as being part of a minority in this country, as an African American, I feel we should talk about race, but I think the dominant culture, people of the dominant culture, feel uncomfortable talking about race for whatever reasons. And I know it goes back historically why we have this racial divide and why we have this sort of elephant in the room that nobody wants to talk about. But I'm not uncomfortable talking about race. I think it would bring about even greater communication, better understanding, and a closeness that is yet to be brought about in the United States of America. Although I do see that we in this country, there has been some progress. There has been progress when you talk about how different racial groups get together and come together and are more unified, but there's still a lot of room for improvement. And I say that because I'm looking at our last election. So I just think that has a lot to do with some of the maybe hidden or maybe some of the unspoken feelings about race.
So this year I'm serving with AmeriCorps, and so it's definitely I grew up in a predominantly white neighborhood, and then working now in a predominantly black neighborhood, and so definitely experiencing what it's like to be white in kind of like out of an area of comfort and being surrounded by mostly black patients, and I'm working in a clinic. And I think the way that I've addressed, dealing with whiteness and being privileged because I'm white is just kind of listening, focusing on listening to my patients, and taking more of the backseat in terms of, more just listening is what I would say. Yeah.
There's actually conversations going on right now at our church about race. We're a predominantly Caucasian church. My wife and I make up one of the few, and my daughter, one of the few African Americans that actually attend. And we're having conversations now about race. And at times they're really touchy, which is, I would figure for the most part, with maybe their curiosity about kind of some of the things I've gone through, some of my experiences, that it would probably be easier to talk about it, but it's not. It's really difficult at times because, you're considering your audience, you want to be respectful. I think that just sometimes just actually having the conversations themselves really are tough. But we really believe that there's a good reason and a good cause, I think, behind, us getting together and us talking about it. Understanding, I think, our differences and learning really how to be able to connect. I think, kind of, I guess, building a deeper respect.
I think people think as a middle-aged white person, why would I really care? But my daughter was born in Guatemala, so we have a mixed-race family, and so I have a heightened awareness of racial issues because of her. And so far, we've been lucky that she hasn't really faced much. But so when people ask, if there was a conversation where, I can remember one at church where someone said, well, what have you faced? And it's like, that's not so much what I have faced, but what I fear my daughter may face. And I want to have our community and the whole country be in a position to treat all people with equally and with respect, so that it applies to her as well to my neighbors in different parts of Westchester and the greater Chester County community, which is heavily Hispanic. So I just think it's the idea that I think people look at you and they assume something without really knowing the background and why you may have a deep interest in trying to even the score across all races.